Hello, I'm Ruben, and
I'm James.
this is James. We are making our video on the Cerveceria de Costa Rica. It was the last tour of the entire trip, and one of our favorites. So we want to begin by talking about the different sections of the factory that we got to visit. To begin with, we visited the silo area where they produce the yeast, and the yeast is actually brought in from Germany, and they have 5 separate silos that all are dedicated to a process that corresponds to every different beer. And they use a variety of ingredients, but mostly barley. And once this is made, it creates a cereal type of mixture, which they then use to make a batch of beer. And the crazy thing that I didn't know is that they run on a 24/6 time. So 6 days out of the week, they're making beer. And every 80 minutes is a batch. Every batch equals to about 11,000 cases of beer. That's every 80 minutes. And
After the silos, we went over to the craft beer section, and it was a smaller area, kind of in the back, almost of like the whole part of that factory facility, and the whole entire like theme of the area was completely different than the rest of the factory. The rest of the factory was very straightforward. Like, these are the machineries, these are the workers, this is what we do. But in this part, it was more like artsy and like artistically themed. They had art on the walls, and like their beers were more like based off of like a chemistry of like throwing together fruits and like ingredients that were all natural, and like they try to create these beers that just tasted very unique. And they only had one IPA because IPAs aren't very big in Costa Rica, but the craft beers are kind of like one of their bigger markets, except it doesn't really come close to the market that their straightforward imperial beers have. I think that they made 3,000 beers or batches a month compared to the 11,000, or not a month.
they actually have a 95% stake of the entire Costa Rican brewery market. So the other 5% is actually just German beers that I guess they kind of compete with them, but mostly, those are just high quality draft beers, not like consumer beers like Imperial, Pilsen, Heineken, and of course the IPAs that they produce. Um, Actually, what I didn't know that I found interesting was there is at the end of the brewing process, there's still a lot of excess yeast in the beer, and they must filter it yet again a second time in order to get all that excess yeast out, because it is a living organism that they put in the beer, and they need to get it out, or otherwise the beer would be terrible.
There was another section that I thought was really interesting. It was a really small building that somebody asked a question like, "What is that?" And it was their non-alcoholic facility, and it was separate from everything else. But they explained it to us as they make the beer, and then in this facility they take out the alcohol just to make it a non-alcoholic beer with the same flavor. And it was interesting and weird because he was describing how in Costa Rica the government has like control over the alcohol, and they can't reuse the alcohol that they take out of the beer in their like process when they're making more alcohol or alcoholic beverages. They have to then just get rid of it because the government doesn't want it, and they're not letting the brewery use it for any other purposes, so they just have to get rid of it, which is kind of a huge like renewability, like sustainability, like con to the whole entire idea that Costa Rica is very like forward thinking and progressive. So it was just kind of like a waste. But one of the point of the non-alcoholic beverages was it was more for people that were maybe coming off of a drinking problem, or for people that just really enjoyed the taste but didn't want to get drunk. And that's a lot less demand for a beer that's not alcoholic. And our tour guide was explaining that he was going to try and incorporate some of their craft beers to be non-alcoholic, so that there would be a little bit more of a flavor than just the plain imperial beer that's non-alcoholic. And I just thought that was very cool.
And to conclude, basically, what I observed about the entire factory is that it's split up into sections, and every section looks very efficient. They're meeting quotas. They're very clean, Everybody has a certain position that they're designated to, and overall, it's just a very efficient factory. And I guess that's why they have 95% of the market share in the entire Costa Rican country. And yeah, overall, that's one of our favorite tours.